Hi, welcome to our second on our series on startups. Now we're going to be talking about entity choice and entity setup. Let's first talk about when and why. Let's handle the why first. Why do you want to do this? Well, what you want to do is you want to build a company that's going to have value and it's going to create value. And there are two really critical things that create value for the company. One are the people of the company. So you want to make sure that you have an entity out there that has this relationship with the various folks who are doing work on its behalf. You know, whether they are founders, employees, contractors, advisors, you need to have that entity structure in place so that you have this team that's valuable, especially here in Silicon Valley. Two, intellectual property. I mean, that is where it is at. That is the market disrupting technology. Those are the patents. Those are obviously some of the trademarks, some of the copyrighted material. Now, let's jump in a little bit more on the why, and this kind of blends into the when. Why? Well, people leave, right? And so it is very critical that you have the relationship memorialized when everybody is happy and knows what it is that what their role is in the company. I can't tell you the number of times that folks have come into my office or given me calls and they had this promise with this person who was their buddy to have X percentage, but then they're changing it. Nothing was ever written down. There was no entity in place, and quite frequently that will sink the business and the idea before it actually even gets up and running. Another when issue also has to do with some taxation matters, and you could talk to your specific tax advisor about it. But if you don't get the intellectual property and the company together in time, and you want to try and do this once things are more well developed, you can run into some nasty tax consequences. So, to answer the question, really as soon as possible is when you want to do it, because that's when you can create a company that starts making value and is something that can be invested in. Now, let's move on to the actual entity choice setup itself. Now, in another video, which focused more on just general business law, I talked about the analysis that we do together to make sure that you get the right entity choice in place. And that analysis can be kind of summarized in these 5 things. 1, take a look at the tax issues. 2, take a look at the potential liability issues that are out there. 3, what kind of management structure do you want to have in place for this? What makes sense for your particular business? 4, funding. How do you get that money into the company so that it can grow and be able to make money and be profitable? And then 5, what is your exit strategy? Now, just like in that video, I talked about how, each company is different, and looking through that analysis is a unique endeavor. So I'm going to give you some general information on startups that's not necessarily going to be right for your company, but is, right in the general context. Generally, with emerging growth companies, a Delaware C corporation is what you're going to want to go for. There are a few reasons for that. We can't get into all of them, but if we take a look at those 5 things that I mentioned before, the funding issue is very critical as well as the management issue. Okay, the funding issue. Emerging growth companies need a lot of capital so they can grow and scale rapidly. That means you need to bring in investors, and investors are generally very comfortable with Delaware. The reason for that is Delaware has a long history of having very strong corporate law. There is good protection, generally speaking, for officers and directors, of which if you're bringing in sophisticated investors, they're going to want to have a seat at the management table, which could be a seat on the board or maybe some sort of other advisory role. So they're going to want to have that protection. Another more sort of mundane but very important reason is the Delaware Secretary of State. The Delaware Secretary of State has a very good reputation for turning things around quickly and being very accessible. That may seem somewhat strange in this context, but the reality of it is through the life cycle of an emerging growth company, there may be mergers, there may be acquisitions, there may be things that are time sensitive, and so you want to be able to go to some place where you can get that paperwork turned around quickly. The state of Delaware is known for having a great, robust business law, case law. What does it mean when I say that? The Delaware Chancery is a court that's devoted to business law issues. Delaware has had a history of having a lot of corporations and businesses set up there. The case law is handled by these judges and chancellors who have very good understanding of what it's like to do business. So for those reasons, investors are comfortable, investing in Delaware corporations and taking seats on the management of Delaware corporations. So with all of that in mind, I love working with startups. Most of my emerging growth companies are here in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you think that we could be a good fit, reach out to me and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you.